This is the Olentia by NadoNado. It's a 63mm conical burr grinder with a quiet, brushless DC motor and some really nice accessories. But is it the right grinder for you? What's up? I hope you're doing well. Thanks for coming back to join me for another video. Full disclosure, NadoNado did send me this grinder for free to check out, to review, and to share with you guys. However, just like all my other reviews, they're not paying me for this review and they don't get to see it before you do. I'm not sure about you, but prior to them reaching out to me, I had never heard of the brand NadoNado before. I did some research and it looks like they're a newer coffee products company based out of South Korea with one other coffee grinder for sale on their website. From the conversations I had with them, it seems like the Olentia is designed to be a higher end, more of a home enthusiast-oriented grinder with a focus primarily on espresso. Also, from everything I'm finding, it looks like they are their own brand that does their own design work and possibly even their own manufacturing. I couldn't find a ton of information, but I didn't find any other grinders from other manufacturers that looked like what they're offering. So I don't think they're white labeling or rebranding grinders from other manufacturers, although this grinder does share some similarities with other grinders, but what grinder doesn't these days? The Olentia features an all-aluminum body construction with what seems like really nice build quality. It feels like a nicely designed and manufactured product. The fit and finish on it is really good. All the parts seem nicely machined, and I really like this two-tone black and gray powder-coated finish. There is going to be a white option available also. Now, I don't know if the grinder that I have is still considered like a prototype or pre-production version, but if it is, I'm really impressed with the build quality. It features a Mazur Koni style 63mm stainless steel conical burr set, which we'll talk more about in a minute. It has stepless grind adjustment with an independent calibration collar, which is really nice. It has a really quiet 120 watt brushless DC motor with variable RPM from 900 to 1700 RPM in 100 RPM increments. It has an ionizer built into the grind's exit chute, similar to the DF grinders. It's got this kind of cool bean weight thing that you put in the top of the grind chamber after you've put your beans in, and this basically moves down with the beans and sort of simulates the weight of beans in a hopper and greatly helps with popcorning. They include this finger safety insert for the opening of the grind chamber, which does help a little bit with popcorning, but obviously not as much as the bean weight does since it fills up the entire opening and moves down with the beans. Like most single dose grinders these days, it has an included bellows, which is nice if you want to use it. On average, I'm seeing about 0.3 to 0.5 grams of retention without using the bellows, and anywhere from 0.1 to 0.2 and sometimes 0 grams of retention with using the bellows, which is pretty typical for, again, most single dose grinders these days. So if you want to use the bellows and you like using bellows, you have that as an option. On the bottom of the grinder, there's a rubber pad that's not just feet, it's an entire foot, I guess. But it's nice because it doesn't slide around on your countertops, it doesn't rattle, it doesn't do anything weird. And if you pull that rubber pad off the bottom, there's a section in there where you can wind up any extra cord that you're not using, which is really nice because I hate when you have a grinder or some sort of appliance on your countertop and there's a whole mess of extra cord that you don't need, depending on where your plug is. So it's nice. I always like when, manufacturers give you the option to be able to roll up or tuck in a cord or something like that. So that's a nice touch. It also comes with a host of nice accessories like this walnut tamp station, 2 shaker-style dosing cups, one you can use for weighing and feeding your beans into the grinder, and one to dose into. It includes a rubber lid that you can put on the dosing cup to shake your grinds if you like to do that, and then there's also a rubber collar that you can put on the dosing cup on the grind exit side of the grinder. There's of course the bellows, a WDT tool, the anti-popcorn tool we've already talked about, 58 and 54mm magnetic dosing funnels, a 54mm portafilter adapter for the tamp station, a cleaning brush, and a burr holding tool and wrench for removing the cone burr, which is really nice for cleaning out the grinder. So surprisingly, it comes with a good amount of actually usable accessories, which is really nice. A lot of times we get grinders or espresso machines or other, coffee products that come with these little kind of cheesy, plasticky, not so great accessories that either end up just getting tossed and thrown in a landfill, which isn't good, or stuffed in a drawer or whatever, don't get used. So it's nice and it's refreshing to see a grinder or, a coffee product that's coming with some actually usable, good quality and nice looking accessories. So let's talk about the burrs. Again, the Olentia comes with 63mm stainless steel conical burrs. They seem nicely made. They seem like they're machined really well. I've been enjoying them for espresso, but they also do a decent job on other brewing methods. There are a few options for replacement or upgraded burrs out there. You can use the Mazur 191C or Koni style burrs, or any burrs that fit a 191C style grinder. The The Niche Zero is a good example of a grinder that uses this style of burr. So as far as I know, any burr that will fit the Niche Zero will also most likely fit the Olentia. I know Gorilla Gear makes a 63mm 191C style burr that will fit in this. I don't have any experience with them, so I can't really speak to it, but if you have experience with the Coney style or 191C style Gorilla Gear burrs, leave a comment down below and let us know how those burrs taste. I know there are a lot of factors that play into flavor profiles, or rather how a burr highlights certain flavors in different types of coffees. So I don't want to say I'm not a fan of the conical burr flavor profile, because obviously taste is subjective and there are a lot of factors that do play into how a coffee tastes. What I can say is that the filter brews that I made with this grinder were better than I expected. The flavors overall were good and surprisingly had a little bit more clarity and complexity than I was expecting. For espresso, it does a really nice job and I've been very pleased with the shots I've been getting. The shots are nice and syrupy, great texture and sweetness, and again, surprisingly, did better for light roasted coffees than I was expecting. I really like pulling longer ratio light roast shots like 1:3 or 1:3.5, and I have experience with some other conical burr grinders that they don't really quite perform that well, or the taste isn't there versus grinding and pulling those same kind of ratios with a flat burr grinder. But again, I was pleasantly surprised with this grinder and it performed pretty well, and I was really happy with the shots I got. Were they as good for that style of shot as what I get with my better flat burr grinders that I really enjoy using? No, not quite as good, but again, better than I expected, but also does a really nice job for those more traditional style, medium and darker roasted shots too. So just depends on what you like. Like I mentioned earlier, it has a 120 watt brushless DC motor that seems really nice and operates quietly. However, I have had it stall on me multiple times while grinding lighter roasted coffees, especially for espresso. NadoNado is aware that stalling could be an issue, and they even have a disclaimer on their site that states that they recommend obviously hot starting, which I recommend with any grinder anyways, but also slow feeding, doing like 6 to 8 grams of beans at a time, which are beneficial things, obviously from the stalling perspective, but also with grind consistency, slow feeding is better. So win-win again there. But I just feel like if they knew that this was an issue, why wouldn't you design the product or revamp the product after prototyping and testing to maybe use a little bit stronger, more powerful motor so you don't have that issue and you don't potentially have customers that maybe haven't seen that disclaimer and then have an issue with your grinder because it's stalling on them. So I could see this being an issue or a concern, especially for people who enjoy, like myself, mostly lighter roasted coffees. As a caveat to that, I will say that the stalling issue was only a problem for me when I was dialing in the grinder, getting used to it, trying different coffees and different grind settings, and being primarily, on the finer side for espresso. Obviously, it was happening more while I was going through sort of the testing phases. Once I was getting coffees kind of dialed in, figuring out the sweet spot, the stalling was happening less and less because I was discovering that I could go coarser and get the flavors and the extractions that I wanted. So that's good, but again, just something to be aware of. I have found with the second shaker cup that I use for dosing into the grinder, if you pull up a little bit on the inner part after you've dosed your beans into here and you have this on top of the grinder, and then sort of rotate this around. I don't know if you can see that very well in there, but it sort of creates a little bit of a gap. It's easier to do on the grinder, but it sort of creates a little bit of a gap there. And as you rotate it around, the beans will kind of fall down into the entrance of the grinder, 1 or 2 beans at a time. And so you can kind of slow feed and do that by rotating that around, which is nice than dropping them in by hand one at a time or trying to slowly, gently, drop them in the grinder. So that was kind of a cool little hack that I figured out that you can use the second dosing cup for. Another thing that I've had happen a couple times is with the grinds adjuster mechanism. It's nice and smooth most of the time and stepless, which is really nice, but every once in a while when going from fine like espresso to a coarser filter setting, I have had it bind up on me a little bit, and I think what's happening is small coffee particles from inside the grind chamber are getting into the threads. It's not horrible, but it is something that I noticed. I think if you're taking apart the grinder and cleaning it on a regular basis and making sure those threads are in good condition, then it's not really an issue, and I don't think it's a deal breaker. It's just something to be aware of that I have noticed a couple of times. Also, it would be nice, since this is primarily focused as being an espresso grinder, and I think personally does better as an espresso grinder, it would be nice if it had a portafilter holder. I do prefer when I can to dose directly into a portafilter. It just cuts down on your workflow and things you have to do, and it's just a nice convenience. So I definitely wish that this had something like that. However, again, not a deal breaker. I think there are some real positives for the Olentia. The build quality is very nice, the motor is quiet, and I've been getting really good coffee with it, especially espresso shots. I think one other positive thing the Olentia has going for it, if you're new to the home espresso hobby, is the accessories that it comes with. If you don't already have some of the accessories that you may want, like a tamp station or the dosing funnels or the blind shakers, WDT tool, different things like that that this comes with, that could potentially save you money. Even though this is an expensive grinder at around $1,000 US, if you're not spending money on some of those other things that you would in turn have to buy if you bought a grinder that didn't come with those things, I think it sort of balances out. I know this isn't every 63mm conical burr grinder out there, but when you look at the price point compared to the Niche Zero at around $675 US, you look at the Varia VS6 at $849 US, I think at this price point, it would be nice if it had a stronger motor like the Niche Zero or the Varia VS6 and that portafilter holder that I talked about. But other than that, I think the Olentia is pretty nice. I will say, as I say with all my reviews, that these things are all subjective, of course. If you like conical burr grinders, if you like the look of this one, if you like the features and options it has, if you like the accessories that it comes with, if you are okay with the price point, then I think this is a great grinder to get. Overall, I've really enjoyed using the Olentia, and I think if you can get it at their IndieGoGo price that they're doing for a limited quantity of grinders at $549 US, which is a 44% savings over the $990 retail price that this is going to be when it becomes available, I think it's obviously even a greater value. I put some links to their product page and their IndieGoGo site in the description so you can get some more information and check out this grinder if you're interested in it. And I think that wraps it up. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.